Hello and welcome to the Jacksonville History Show. I'm Emily Rutherford-Liska, Executive Director of the Jacksonville Historical Society. And I have very interesting guests today. What they share in common is they're both English instructors from way back, and they both love to write. And they both have written magnificent pieces of history that will be with us forever here in Jacksonville, Florida. And these pieces of history are about our beloved North Florida. So on this show today, first I'd like to introduce Dorothy Fletcher. Dorothy, hello.
Hello, how are you?
And Dorothy, your book, Remembering Jacksonville by the Wayside, has just been published. And when I say just been published, I said it is hot off the press. I just received my copy hours ago from your publisher, so I haven't had a chance to read through, but luckily I have had the opportunity to see some of this writing in the Times-Union.
That's correct.
Because you're indeed a Times-Union writer, and I'm going to let you take the story from there, what you started doing and what led to this wonderful book, Remembering Jacksonville.
Okay, I would say about 2 years ago, I approached the Times-Union with a series of articles that I thought would be of interest. And I showed them to Philip Milano, who will eventually become my editor. And he liked it well enough, but he said, well, you need to be less about you and more about the subject. And the subject basically was things that had gone by the wayside, which is the title of my column, that were very much a part of our growing up period. And the articles seemed to appeal mostly to the boomer generation, because most of the people who would read these articles know exactly what I'm talking about, and have attended the theaters that are no more, the Southside Drive-In, for instance, and or the Center Theater. And so that's basically where that happened.
Now I've thumbed through the book, and what it really is, it's everyday life in Jacksonville, Florida, primarily in the 1950s and 1960s.
That's right.
So, and it's these wonderful fun stories reminding us all of how we spent our time growing up in Jacksonville. Everything from visits to Cohen Brothers department store, the big store in downtown, to the Center Theater, to the Hojo, Howard Johnson's.
Right.
And you told me something really interesting before the show started. There was something like 1,000.
That's right.
Back in 1960, Howard Johnson's, and now nationwide we're down to what?
Three. And I don't know how long they're going to last. I think they're closer to where the original Howard Johnson's, probably up in New England somewhere. But that's all. There are only 3 left. So.
And so the book is primarily a series of columns, about 20 columns that you've written for the Times-Union, remembering these wonderful institutions and events and locations in Jacksonville, Florida, and then interspersed with some photographs.
Right.
And curiously, some of the photographs are showing the vacant lot.
I know. Well, I mean, it's sad to say, you go to find these things, and like I said, they are no more. Or they're a BP gas station, or a tire store, although the tire store where the, the Southside Drive-In is, it's always been there. But we always thought they were the same.
And now here's the front of your book, the front piece. Could you tell me why you selected these particular graphics for the cover? Well, images, I should say.
Actually, the publisher had more to do with that, but they loved the painting that I sent them. This is a painting of a 1957 photograph from, no, I want to say maybe it's 1967. At any rate, it's in the Friendship Park, looking across the river at the Alsop, or the Main Street Bridge. And I just love the playfulness of it.
Whose painting is that?
Becky Sarr-Leone, a friend of mine. She grew up next door to me, as a matter of fact. The bottom picture is Pat's Drive-In, which is one of the curb service eateries in Jacksonville on the west side. I never went there, but when I would interview people, it was mentioned quite a bit that one of the great things was to hit all the hot spots in a night.
Oh,
you know?
Absolutely.
So
you know, the rounds of all the drive-in
Exactly.
eateries.
Yes.
Well, we're going to show some more photographs from your book, and one of them, I think so many people will remember this.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you tell everyone, it'll come up on the monitor, and just there you go.
This is Skipper Ed, I believe it was the Skipper, was it? Yes, Skipper Ed show.
And it was a television show for those watching, for children, clearly.
And that was one of the things to be able to do, is to be in the audience or in the, I guess, the peanut gallery of the studio. And his daughter is sitting right next to him. I believe that's Meg Fisher, and in the little boat. And I just think it's wonderful. I love the clothes. I love the exuberance. I mean, you've really got to take a chance to have 30
This was Channel 12,
children.
as I recall, Skipper
Correct.
Ed. And
That's right.
I was on the show, and you said you were, of course, too.
Oh, absolutely. I think Girl
Probably.
Scouts and Brownies were
Always.
always got to go.
You just sort of signed up to go.
That's right.
And isn't this the one where we all cheered, "Let's go Popeye," before it
Oh,
started,
yes,
the cartoon?
I'm sure, you know, and that was his specialty.
And I told you, I sadly recall I was a little bit too old to be there, but wanted to be there desperately.
Oh, absolutely.
So it was, I was getting a little, you know, nonetheless, it was fun. There are some, what is your favorite column or story that you relate in the book?
Gosh, there are a couple.
Okay, tell us.
I remember it was kind of poignant because I found a dog tag with all my personal information on it, because in the 50s and 60s we were so afraid of the war, the bomb.
Oh, sure.
And so we wore these tags, not realizing what they were actually for. We just thought it was kind of like jewelry, you know. But they were actually for, as Philip Smith said, a very grim purpose.
Well, of course, your Jacksonville school, like mine. You were at what school?
I went. Well, it was called South San Jose when I was there, because it was brand new when I went there. And then in the bicentennial, it was changed to Kings Trail Elementary. So.
And I was at Brentwood Elementary, and then went on to Kirby. And of course, we had the duck and cover drills, as I'm sure you did.
Absolutely.
And then by the time I got to Kirby, we would have the marches down to the train tracks to see how long it would take, roughly, the student body to get to the train tracks so they could load us into train cars, just good old box cars, in case we needed to get out of the city. So apparently there was some plan to get the children out of the city in case there was, you know, warfare of some type.
Supposedly, I think we were to go to Hastings, and they were just going to let us out in the field, I guess.
And now, on to, well, of course, there was no need to ever board the train. That's happy news.
Yes.
But on to some other fun news of the 50s. I'm showing a photo from your book. And anyone who grew up in Jacksonville, or probably anywhere in the nation in mid-century, would remember the requisite pony photo.
Absolutely.
The man with a pony would come through the neighborhood. Go ahead, you tell your memories of this.
And sometimes he did have cowboy clothes for you. You didn't even have to have your own. But
now you tell me. Go ahead.
Exactly. It was just like, oh, it was even better than the ice cream man, you know, because everybody wanted a pony. We watched more television shows with horses in them. I mean, because the Western was our, you know, whereas right now we've got mostly police procedurals and things like mysteries. But back in the 50s and 60s, it was all Westerns.
And the heroic,
you know,
horse or who, the cowboy and cowgirl. The cowgirls were heroic too.
That's right. There was Dale Evans, yes, not to forget her, Annie Oakley, all of those people. But I can remember just begging for a pony. And of course, we lived in the suburbs. They're not going to let you have a pony.
Well, see, there was the difference between the two of us. I was petrified of the pony that came to my house. Really probably had no clue what a pony was, living on West 23rd Street, but nonetheless thinking it was a big dog is what I think. I told you my pony picture is standing against a wall at our house crying, but it's a memory, I will say.
Oh, yes.
Now we're going to look, and my brother of course looked perfect on the pony in his photo, but we're going to show another quick photo, and this, we already talked about Skipper Ed. Oops, let me get this. This is, there you go, right? And we're showing them from the book because this is so hot off the press. This is, of course, the beloved
Ranger Hal.
Good old Ranger Hal.
I personally, I was just in awe of him. I had a crush on him. I thought he was so handsome.
Also a television personality.
Oh, yes. And he also had children on his show, but I don't think quite as frequently. And, you know, you had to make the rounds as you were growing up to be on both of those shows. I was trying to think of,
And we're going to show one more photo. It's about all we have time for. And this is even, this really gets back to the 1940s.
Oh, yeah.
And here, let me see, if I'm on, the top photo is the one I'm aiming for. And it's absolutely
it's
reversed to
beautiful,
the way I think I'm supposed to move this is how it needs to be. But the little train on top was the train that ran through the woods in Mandarin.
Right.
And talk about that a little bit.
Well, I remember my family taking us on trips through Mandarin on Sundays. That was the big day. You got to get in the car and go, and it was all woods and such. And there was a little train out there where you could ride around this track, and then at the end I think you would buy produce, you know, like oranges in particular. And what's interesting about this book are the emails that I've gotten, because there are a lot of people have added stuff that I didn't even know. Like there was a robbery once where kids on horseback came and took all the jewelry and money from the passengers and then rode off. And of course, when you got back to the train station, there was everything.
Well, good.
It was a joke, but it was, I mean, who knew this? And of course, it so
Innocent
rattled,
times, huh?
yes, it so rattled the engineer that he wouldn't take anybody the rest of the day. He said,
oh, my.
He was very upset.
I have to say, in my quick glancing, I love that part that you would think to include. After you put a column in the Times-Union, about once a month these columns run, people will send you these letters and these emails, and you've included them in the book. And
they're the best part for me.
The ones I've glanced at have been wonderful. I want to thank you for being here, Dorothy.
Thank you.
And I want to tell the people who are watching that the book, Remembering Jacksonville by the Wayside, will be available immediately in bookstores all over Jacksonville and also at the Jacksonville Historical Society.
That's right.
It's a great piece. It has added in such a significant way to the body of knowledge about our beloved Jacksonville.
Yes, thank
and
you.
I want to thank you for loving our city and caring about our city and writing about our city.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy Fletcher. We'll be right back with our next guest, another English professor by trade, and we'll reveal another exciting chapter in Jacksonville history. Stay with us.